Mayor, as you know, we're gathered here today in our pink shirts to bring awareness to the fight against breast cancer here in Fort Worth and across the globe. But tonight I ask my colleagues' indulgence in allowing me to use my announcement time to talk briefly about another issue that pulls at my heart. Ron, would you go ahead and run the parents of Asher Brown, who you can see above, complained to school officials in the Cypress Fairbanks ISD outside of Houston that their son was being bullied and harassed in school. The bullies called him faggot and queer. They shoved him, they punched him, and in spite of his parents' calls to counselors and principals, the harassment, intimidation, and threats continued. For years, it continued. A couple of weeks ago, after being bullied at school, Asher went home, found his father's gun, and shot himself in the head. His father found Asher dead when he came home from work. Asher was 13 years old. I'd like for you to look at his face. Unlike Asher, Indiana teen Billy Lucas, who never self-identified as gay, but was perceived to be by bullies who harassed him daily at the Greenberg Community High School. 3 weeks ago, he hung himself in his grandparents' barn. He was 15 years old. Minnesota 15-year-old Justin Auberg came out to friends at age 13, after which the harassment and bullying began. It grew as he moved from middle school to high school. When he found the harassment more than he could bear, he hung himself in his room and was found by his mother. Classmates started teasing and name-calling Seth Walsh in the 4th grade. It continued through his middle school years, where other students told him the world didn't need another queer and that he should, quote, go hang himself. On September 18th, after being threatened by a group of older teens, he went home, threw a noose around a tree branch, and he did just that. He hung himself in his backyard. His mother saw him, pulled him down. Seth survived on life support for 9 days before dying a couple of weeks ago. He was 13 years old.
Faggot, most of the time I've heard. Gay, no homo.
That's gay, this is gay, you're gay, oh man, no I'm not gay. It's looked down upon when it's something completely natural.
If a guy does something that's remotely feminine, he's usually called a fag.
Walking down the hall, they'll say something about, poke fun at it, like saying, oh, have a fruity day or something.
It's very subtle, but it's there. A friend of mine, he tries to act tough around his friends by calling them fags. I always hear fag, it's the new word for lame, basically, and dyke, which is the new word for stupid or something like that. It's just really offensive, and when I try to tell them, please don't say that, they don't understand. It's oh, whatever, it's just a word. It's just no, it's not. You're offending somebody, you're hurting somebody.
Brian asked for a pass out of gym class every day. Sometimes he got it. He would run down the hall as fast as he could to grab his lunch, eat it as quickly as possible, and then run into the library, because the library was a place that bullies didn't tend to go. It became his safe place. So many ways, and Brian just learned to play school. As we heard in the previous clips, Councilman Burns, the kids from the schools, bullying truly is a tremendous challenge. It's a problem in our schools, in our classrooms, and in society at large. This film is dedicated to all the students who have been bullied, and it provides a space for us to begin thinking about bullying, and provides us an opportunity to begin to address it and to really look at bullying in our schools and in our society. 71% of students reported that bullying is an ongoing problem in their schools. 90% of victims admitted that they suffered negative side effects beyond their school years. Among them are significant drop in grades, increase in anxiety, loss of friends, loss of social life.
Brian McNaught, in one of the lectures that he had in Growing Up Gay in America, had talked about this, and I thought that was the first time I had dawned on me. If you are a girl that is being harassed, and having gender issues, you can kind of go home and your mom says, yeah, I know, that kind of happens, and here's what we have to do. And there's a relationship that it happens in this place, but I can go home. If you're If you're a minority, you can feel the harassment and you go home and there's somebody saying, yeah, but we're really okay. We're a family. And because this is so pervasive, many of the homes for LGBTQ issues, there isn't a place that they can go to that says, yeah, but you're okay. You're just like one of us. Because we haven't, it's starting, fortunately, on some campuses, but not in grade schools. Maybe some high schools have some support groups. But a little kid who is questioning and not knowing and gets name called, the last thing they want to go home is tell their father what they've been called. You know, they're not going to, because they're sure they're going to get a double whammy. Mm-hmm. And so I think that makes some of these issues much more insidious than the other isms. Because where is their support group?
Swings are supposed to be fun. They're where kids grow up. We swing, we jump out, we're being kids. But as we just saw, bullying is a tremendous problem in our schools. Homophobic bullying is a tremendous problem in our schools. In the next segment, we'll hear the real-life stories from academics, teachers, and students about their experiences with bullying.
I'm Dr. Red-Green. I have a lot of experience in the schools, in the public schools. I was a high school counselor for 5 years, and I've also had a lot of experience in clinical mental health and working with a broad range of population, but really working with adolescents. From a cultural perspective and a societal perspective, I think that our society does have that attitude of boys will be boys, and it's a rite of passage from some perspectives. But I do think it's a serious problem. I think it's been around for a long time, and I think there's more awareness now because of the really devastating impact that it's had in terms of murdering people who are gay and lesbian. I think about the young college student that was strung up on barbed wire. Probably a decade or more ago, and then students who are committing suicide as early as elementary school, and I think that's surprising for. I think it's surprising for people that children that young kill themselves, but because the trauma and the pain is so deep, that's one way that they cope. And it's not the best coping mechanism, suicide, but it is a coping mechanism. I think our society has and needs to change pretty dramatically. We have laws that protect children against neglect and physical abuse, emotional abuse, and sexual abuse, but we don't have any laws to protect children from aggression from their peers. And I think that that's something that within their federal government and the state, I think that needs to occur.
There's always like little really small isolated incidents, but the only real big one, which has always amazed me too, because I mean, you would think I'd be kind of a target, but no. But the biggest one was there was this one guy in high school. I was sort of outed against my will, which was not particularly fun. And there was this one guy who basically stalked me more or less with bullying. Like I hear through other people, this guy's talking about you. It's he said something about you again. He's gonna find you, beat you up, yada yada. And I have a friend who actually worked with him now, and apparently he graduated like a year before me. Apparently he still talks about me, which I'm not really frightened by so much as I just find kind of pathetic, I mean, what kind of life do you have to have that you're at work now? I remember that gay kid from high school. I hated him.
It actually got to a point when I got older to where I didn't know that I had depression, and I think that it really negatively affected my depression. Just being bullied, it just made it worse. But I actually contemplated suicide and thought about taking my own life because I felt like I wasn't worth it, and I tried to reach out and to get help, and I tried to talk about it with my family and things like that, but I just kind of felt like nobody understood. I know it's hard. We all judge people when we first see them, but try not to let those judgments affect the way that you treat those people, and I don't know, just be awesome to each other, treat people with respect.
When you're in middle school and high school, you're never called anything but fat and ugly. You don't think of yourself as beautiful, and you literally do go through weight loss and weight gain. I was obese at the end of middle school. I was anorexic at the beginning of high school. By the end of freshman year, I was 185 pounds within the winter. I ate my feelings. But when you're trying to find yourself in middle school and high school, I think it complicated my situation because I wasn't the typical Indian. You know, they were all, you know, very conservative and they had their ways. I couldn't fit in with them. I was more Caucasian than Indian.
My son is in high school and just a very delightful person. And I just learned late last year, that people were calling him a fag at school. Now, whether he is gay or not is totally irrelevant. They shouldn't be using that term with him. They shouldn't be using that term, period, in schools. And nobody seems to be addressing it. And what's good about my son is that he kind of has taken an I don't care attitude to how people treat him. He doesn't mind these words, but what if he was somebody who really did? He has a good group of friends. He has friends who are gay. He has friends who are not gay. And, you know, does that make him more of a target? Is he also a target because he's in theater, because he does act a little goofy sometimes? He does silly things. Sure, but that's nobody's business. If he wants to be a goofy high school person, then he should be a goofy high school person. He's a boy. It's concerned me that nobody's addressing this in school.
I feel the biggest issue is, where do schools, like, because cyberbullying allows it to go on at home and at school, especially with technologies nowadays. I think the big problem the school systems are having is, where does the school systems and their members stop, and where does the parents and theirs begin? Because if you think about it, you know, students, you know, we spend most of our time at school, and usually 5 out of 7 days of the week. And if we're going to school most of the time, it's going to follow us.
You're not scared to do it online because no one's standing there watching you or saying anything back. And so middle school, high school, girls especially, they will say the meanest things that they would never say in person to your face. And that's, I think, one of the biggest problems with technology is just people will do anything on computers, and once it's out there, can't take it back.
A group of kids who she didn't really like and then really didn't like her made a hate group about her on Facebook that blatantly said, I hate this girl, like her name, and put a picture of her with an X on it. And so, and I got invited to this group, and I'm like, okay, decline or whatever. And so she saw it, and she called me crying, saying, why would you do this to me? And she had contemplated suicide. And she came over to my house, I talked her through it, told her, don't do that, you know, it's not worth it. So we ended up reporting the group, taking it to the principal, and the principal ended up taking all 5 of those girls who made that group and severely punishing them.
A child has come in from the playground where there's been name calling or whatever. How is that child going to be able to focus on the lesson while there's a scar forming inside from things that he or she has heard that were said? And that's going to be what their brain is focused on when the math lesson is going on. So every student deserves a safe environment in which to learn.
And I think classroom management has gotten us to the point where we set up these rules that, you know, kids coming back from the playground, a class teacher with small kids could hear nothing but tattling for the next 20 minutes about everything that went on. So the rule is, when you come in from recess, you don't tattle. Okay, so then a kid comes in and wants to really tell you about they were thrown down to the ground, but you say, sorry, there is the rule, because you got really good classroom management, you need to get really into the subject. And then taking it from the child's standpoint is that child needs to tell you something for some reason, that it mattered. Whatever happened in that playground mattered to that child. But you have just said the rule is much more important than what you are. And so where do you then find something in your classroom that we attend to these things, that we deal with the fact that children's feelings matter? Or how do you say, I know this situation sounded like it was really something that was very difficult for you, and I really want to get to this, and we'll talk about this and figure out a place where you can contain it or talk about it. But identify that it matters to them. And there might have been huge bashing that went on that you never knew about. And you might say, well, you know, I don't really want to know about it. That's why I don't go out on the playground. You know? You want to know what's going on in your school, you do playground and lunch duty, and you really do find out what's going on in the school. You want to know as an administration of a university what's going on. You get out of your office and you walk around and you see it. But that takes, I don't know. That's harder. It's easier not to know.
Athletics, yearbook, theater, extracurricular activities are supposed to be places where kids experience life, where they grow up, where they're happy. Yet places like this athletic field are places where bullying happens all the time. From a coach saying, stop playing like a girl, to peer-on-peer bullying. It's happening here. It's happening in our schools. It's happening in our locker rooms. We have to begin thinking about how to address this problem. One way is to become more aware of the problem of bullying and how it impacts our lives, our students, and our classrooms.
One of the most important things is just making sure that you make people aware. So that kind of ties back to gay and lesbian, because a lot of people it's like they're scared to talk about it. So that's the biggest thing is I think that's why your classroom is so successful, because you're not scared to talk about it. So that's why it makes other people open to talking about it. Because I think so often we have teachers or parents or anybody they don't want to talk about it and they don't want to bring it up. So that brings, you just don't know. So it's more of the more you talk about it and the more you make it aware. And then with inclusion, I think it's important that there's no, you have to fill in the gap, because if you have students down the hallway with special needs and then you have general ed students in one classroom, there's that gap and those students never connect. So it's kind of it's kind of the same with straight kids and then gay and lesbian, because if they're separated, there's no connection between those kids, so there's no way that they can ever connect.
I have a learning disability, and some of us don't like to be in the spotlight, and so I think that's another thing, when professors here or learn, the DRO is always you need to talk to professors after class. Well, some of us don't want to be exposed. We want to be normal, and it's the realization that we're not what society deems as normal. So I think that also ties into it.
Well, basically because the way I was born and what I was diagnosed with as a child, I was bullied pretty much through elementary school, some of middle school, and very little high school, because I was diagnosed with a learning disability, mild CP, and a speech impairment, which was a lot worse back then. And also, I was put into some special education classes, also some speech therapy. And every time I had to go for therapy, I would have a therapist come and pick me up at class or whatever, so everyone could kind of see. See, I was mostly mainstreamed in school, but just having a little bit of a difference kind of ticked off some of the students, I think, because I got the special treatment. So yes, I did get bullied throughout school partially because of that. I don't know if it's going to get better, because I do think part of the reason we bully or are bullied is because it's part of our innate human nature to try to think we're better than somebody else. But I guess it could get better by telling people to try to think about why they're going to bully people. Try to look inside yourself to see why you pick on that person.
Well, I think in general, I think heterosexual privilege is a big problem, and I think there's the invisibility of homophobia is part of the problem, as much as blatant homophobia is a problem. I think on some campuses, the visibility of the LGBTQ community is lower, and a lot of faculty and administration don't see it at all. And I think it's that level of lack of awareness that creates a lot of problems.
And not for everybody, but I also think that there's a very strong percentage of faculty that don't see it, don't want to see it. Because if I see it, then I'm going to have to do something about it, and I don't know what to do about it, so it's best if I don't see it. And it's just a total avoidant behavior. And it's also, I think, which we see a lot at Safe Zone, is that people think that they have to be experts at it in order to be able to talk about it. And this, for me, is about human relationship. And you have to know how to form relationships with people. and you have to see people as human beings first before any other labels are put on them. And that label, I think, immediately just freezes people and just like, oh God, I don't know how to deal with this. We've certainly never grown up talking about it. I don't know what to do. And then it's so comfortable for people to say, I don't want to make a mistake, so I'll just not say anything because I don't want to offend, and that really is a cop-out. Any other issues if a kid was bleeding on the playground, you'd attend to that. It's necessary to do that. Or if it just in reading, if a kid was stumbling over a word, you'd help them learn how to sound out the word. You would involve yourself with them in a relationship. But then the slurs come, or something that has to do with gay issues, and it's like, we'll just ignore it. And we know what ignoring things do.
Well, I think one of the best things a teacher, an instructor, a professor can do is to maintain that level of sort of professional conduct in the classes, and what's appropriate, what isn't appropriate, and not waver from that. That's very important, is to be consistent. But I think it's also that one of the best things they can let students know is that they are listening. And if a teacher hears just off, just out of the corner, just at the corner of the room, hear somebody say, "That's so gay," or hear them say, make some kind of slur against the LGBT community, that a teacher, even if they don't particularly feel that they are an advocate of gay rights, can still demand a level of respect in their classroom.
I've always tried to weave it into my classes, talk about, no matter how you personally feel about homosexuality, you have to be able to confront that within yourself and be able to teach kids of all kinds of differences.
I would first say, as far as is bullying okay or are slurs okay, I don't think it matters whether or not I choose to be gay or not, or whether I choose to wear a certain type of tennis shoes. Mistreating someone is wrong. I mean, so what if I like to wear a certain kind of sneakers, or if being gay is an innate part of who I am and is immutable and I cannot change it. Both of those things, to bully me because of that or to mistreat me because of that is wrong, I think. I think it goes back to elementary kindness.
And I think we're entering an age where this is one of the first, even 20, 30 years ago, this is not a problem that would be largely addressed. It's not something that, it'd just be, oh, suck it up, you're fine. Because I think America specifically is a society that really does sort of value aggression. We really do sort of, well, you gotta be strong, you gotta be fierce to survive in the world. And that's the thing where, the people that get bullied are always seen as weaker. That's why the minority is always targeted by people who will bully them, because they're just seen as well. There's less of them than there are of us. I think in our society we are, as I said, slowly acknowledging that it's a problem, and I know it's a cheesy thing to say, but I do think it is getting better. I would like to think that. I hope that we are.
I graduated with the diploma, the advanced diploma. I did what I wanted to do, and I made it to college. Although I might not have experienced bullying in college necessarily, it follows you. Because until this last semester, I would be paranoid. People I don't even know, I'd be walking through the Bonnie. People I don't even know, I would put my head down, don't make eye contact, because I always think they're talking about me. They're not from my school, but when I first got here, there's a lot of people from my school. I was like, I don't want to date anybody, because I feel like if they find out someone from my school, they'll just get bad rumors about me. So I was kind of just kept to myself, and I still feel that people are always talking about me, and it's not good.
The more negative that you are toward them, could really do some damage.
Unspoken words basically can't change anything. It's important to speak up and tell someone if you feel bullied, if you're being bullied.
Just find the people who are around you that will support you and, pull you up instead of tear you down, and show you the good qualities that you have instead of the bad.
I think so often people walk up and see it and they feel it's just easier to walk away and not say anything. but I mean, you could save someone's life. So it's so important to, you know, tell that person, hey, how about you leave them alone? Or, I mean, you can defend them and change their whole life just by helping them that one day.
You should never allow yourself to be dumbed down or to change in any way because you're afraid of what people may say or what people may do. You should embrace everything about yourself as passionately and as fervently as you can, and be you 100%. Don't be afraid to be who you are.
Thank you for viewing this film. I hope it has raised awareness concerning the problem of bullying in our schools and in our society. I hope you walk away today having a concrete idea of what you can do in your school and in your community to create a safe place for all students. Harvey Milk, a California politician who was bullied and eventually killed by Dan White, said it best when he said, "There is hope."
Somewhere in Des Moines or San Antonio, there's a young gay person who all of a sudden realizes that she or he is gay, knows that if the parents find out, they'll be tossed out of the house. The classmates would taunt the child, and the Anita Bryans and John Briggs are doing their bit on TV, and that child had several options: staying in a closet, suicide, and then one day that child might open a paper and it says homosexual elected in San Francisco, and there are two new options. The option is to go to California, and stay in San Antonio and fight. 2 days after I was elected, I got a phone call, and the voice was quite young. It was from Altoona, Pennsylvania, and the person said, "Thanks. And you've got to elect gay people so that that young child and the thousands upon thousands like that child know that there's hope for a better world. There's hope for a better tomorrow. Without hope, not only gays, but those blacks and the Asians, and the disabled, the seniors, the us's, without hope, the us's give up. I know that you cannot live on hope alone, but without it, life is not worth living. And you've got to give them hope. Thank you very much.